in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to improve your diet, your reading diet, to score better on the SAT reading section. I'm Kat Severson. I'm the inventor of the Severson method, a scientifically proven way to learn anything fast, including the reading section on the SAT. You guys have no idea how many requests I receive on a weekly basis, maybe 5 or anywhere between 5 or 10. And students from all over the world, on Instagram, on YouTube, are asking me a question of how they can improve their performance on the reading section, either on the SAT or on the ACT. And my answer is usually to direct them to Erica Meltzer's book for reading. And a lot of the time that solves the problem, but a lot of the time it doesn't. For some of my students, the idea of reading comprehension is challenging in the first place. And it's not because they have dyslexia, it's because they haven't practiced something which is at the core of reading comprehension. And if I were to ask you, what is reading comprehension? What would you tell me? I'm going to give you a moment. What is a reading comprehension? If you actually think about it, it will help you get this lesson. I want you to type that into the comments because I would like to see what you guys are thinking. But in my opinion, reading comprehension, and it comes from someone who teaches reading comprehension, the reading comprehension is your ability of making meaning from text. Some of my students have a very good ability of making meaning from text. So it doesn't matter what passage you were looking at. They just have that down. They know how to look at a sentence, they know how to look at a paragraph and make accurate meaning from it. So that happens only if you have been practicing making meaning from different types of text. And when it comes to the SAT, there's this whole component of different types of questions and tricky answer choices. So you need to decipher and navigate that. And all of it comes on top of your ability of making meaning from text. And reading comprehension doesn't just happen. It develops over time. It's like you don't grow muscle by working out once or twice. It actually has to be happening. You have to think of this reading section preparation as twofold. As your personal trainer, as your tutor, I can teach you how to do exercises. We can go through the motions together. But if you're lacking this fundamental ability of making meaning from text and long sentences and complex sentence structures and overwhelmingly long paragraphs, then you're just not even going to get to the questions. You're not even going to get to the point of, oh, this is how I untangle this, because you're not going to simply make meaning from text. The best analogy I can come up with for you is if you go and hire a personal trainer and he shows you all the exercises, but you're not eating well. So your diet is not in order. You're not going to go very far. You may lose a little bit of weight, and you may become a little bit more toned, but you're not going to get to your goal. The same thing is if you come to me and you're lacking this ability of making meaning from text, I can teach you a few tricks. I can teach you some strategies and what to look for and how to deal with vocabulary and context questions, how to identify traps. I'm actually going to make a separate video for that, but you need to have this underlying ability. You need to have your diet if you want to score 400 or 380 on your SAT reading section. Okay, now, all of that is aside, and let's talk about how can you develop this ability and how can you enrich your diet early on. So let's assume you're watching this video and maybe it's a year before you take your SAT. Maybe you're so proactive and maybe you were taking it in the 9th grade. Maybe you were thinking about your SAT and you're just watching this video ahead of time. Or maybe you're a parent who is interested in enriching his or her kid's diet in terms of reading diet, and they just want to know what is it that I should be giving my child early on so that they can score higher and suffer less when they get to the SAT and the ACT age. So I'm going to give you 5 resources. As you know, there are 5 sections on the SAT, 5 reading passages on the SAT. The first one is the I think it's called prose fiction. Yeah, they just call it fiction, I think. And we have a lot of experience with reading fiction. Kids in school, in their English class, they're reading Toni Morrison, they're reading Jane Austen, they're reading classical literature and somewhat contemporary literature. So they have a lot of experience with just making meaning from text. And if you are lacking this ability, just try to pay closer attention in class. Just try to pay closer attention to close readings you do with your teacher, or maybe approach them, let them know that you're not quite getting the concept. So you actually have a great resource in your school to improve your reading comprehension abilities for fiction. But we are left with 4 more categories. There's social science, there's natural science, there's history and global texts, and there's a paired passage. The way I like to think about the paired passage is it's more of conflicting viewpoints passage. So now, what are some resources? They're online and they're free that can help you enrich your diet. So for the social science, there are 2 great resources of articles. Online, they're free, and you can just start reading them, maybe 1 article per week. Just get used to the patterns, sentence structures, and the way they convey their ideas. And if you keep track of these patterns, your brain will just get used to this skill and develop the skill of making meaning from texts like these. So the first website is called thebostonglobe.com/ideas. So you want to go to Boston Globe publications, just want to go to ideas. This is where I find articles that are very close to what SAT is giving you for the social science section. So let's just click on the first one, Uncommon Knowledge, First Draft, Liberals, and IQ Tests. And here's a long-winded article. We're going to click here, continue reading. There's going to be lots of ads, lots and lots of ads. Don't you guys worry, I have a trick for that. I'm going to use this add-on to the browser, and I'm going to press on it, and it would turn this article with ads into this very fine document without any ads. And this is basically the text of this article summed up, and you can just go ahead and read that. So that's the first resource, Boston Globe, and this little add-on to the Chrome browser, it's called Mercury Reader. And Mercury Reader is a free add-on, super easy to install. I'm just going to show you guys just because it's fun. So you go to the open space in your Chrome, and then you just Google Mercury Reader, and it will appear. And you just want to look for the Mercury Reader for Google Chrome, and it's an extension. And then because here on my browser it's installed, so here the only option I have is to remove it. So on your end, if you don't have Mercury Reader yet, it will appear and say install, and it would automatically install here, and it costs nothing, and it's a fabulous thing. I highly recommend it. All right, so the second resource for the social science is this, thenewatlantis.com. It's the Journal of Technology and Society, the social science. And articles here I find are a lot longer than the articles on the SAT, but they're very enjoyable and they're very like SAT. So if you're thinking about supplementing your reading with something to improve your SAT score in the future, you should be supplementing with something that is easy to read. Because have you seen SAT reading section? The sentences are longer than normal. The sentence structure is a lot weirder than on websites that I personally like reading. Like, this is the blog that I like to follow, and unfortunately, reading information from this blog is not going to help me score higher on the SAT. Therefore, thenewatlantis.com. And like I said, the articles are a little bit longer, but let me just click on this one. Why data is never raw. And this is this long wilted article, this long text. Again, by the way, what I love about it doesn't have a lot of ads, just a little bit, but I think you could still use Mercury Reader on it to make it even tighter. And you could play with your font, just develop this ability. And I'm fairly certain you can subscribe to them so that they will be sending you 1 or 2 articles per week. So that's a great resource, thenewatlantis.com. Not sponsored by any one of these, by the way, if you were wondering. So now we're done with the social science portion. We have natural science, and we have history, we have the paired passage. Okay, for natural science, a lot of my students actually find this section most challenging. I have just taken the SAT today. Today is March 9th, 2019, and out of 5 passages, I have to tell you, the last passage, they always put it last, the last passage, the natural science passage, even for me, was one of the more challenging passages. So in order to improve your meaning-making ability, you want to go to 2 of these websites, scientificamerican.com/the-sciences, because Scientific American is kind of turning into this populistic magazine, and they're making a lot of news about mind and health and sustainability, but I like to stick with their premise, which is very much like what the SAT is going to give you. And if you just go to the sciences, they are going to give you articles like the SpaceX, and then you can choose arts and culture, biology, chemistry, evolution. Let's go with biology. And warm-blooded animals lost ability to heal the heart. These are videos, and these are articles. Most microbial species are dark matter. That's interesting. And then we're going to click on it, and believe it or not, an article would appear. And I think you can use mercury on it as well. Yes, you can. And this is looking very much like the SAT passage. It has a graph, it has a chart, it has some text, it has enormously long sentences. Yeah, so here, to determine how much microbial dark matter exists, Karen Lloyd, a microbiologist at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and her colleagues compared all known microbial DNA sequences with a subset from species that have already been cultured. Very typical SAT-like sentence, and I didn't even plan that. We just randomly stumbled upon the article. So you can see how Scientific American can help you just get more exposure, just like, diversify your reading diet. So that's for the natural science. Another natural science place is this one. Wired.com. Wired.com is a website that is also trying to be more pop. They're trying to, I'm not saying they're bad. I am very appreciative of what Wired.com does, but they're just not at the moment serving the purpose of exposing us to the texts that we need. Wired.com at some point started to remind me about Forbes Online, where there are really short articles that are really repetitive. They seem to like regurgitate the same concept over and over again, and they start to make lists, top 10 tips or top 17 women executives. Wired at some moment, in my experience, not saying that they're bad, they're great, started to do that as well. So I just want you to go to directly Wired Category Science. Wired Category Science. And in there, I want you to find articles that could actually interest you. Beware, sponsored content, try not to click on those. So plate tectonics. So the fish on your plate may not be what you ordered. Okay, very typical natural science, biological type of topic. Just close that real quick. Again, we can try mercury. Yep, it lets us do that. And yeah, that does even in length seem like an article for the SAT that's more or less on the shorter side. So far you have 4 resources. Now for history, again, you will be exposed to one of those original texts. You're going to be either exposed to the speech by one of the former presidents or someone from the suffrage movement. There's a huge part of the American history on the SAT. We didn't have any of the American history texts today, by the way. It was about South Africa. It was about 2 gentlemen saying something about the topic of democracy in South Africa. So even though it's very important to expose yourself to as many great United States political original papers as possible, and it's a very good idea if you're taking advanced placement history, in short APUSH, early on. Maybe if you're taking advanced placement history on 10th grade or 11th grade and then you're taking the SAT later, you're getting a lot of that exposure. You're getting a lot of that ability to construct meaning from sentences that don't even follow the rules of the English language, that they're longer usually. They use words, the definitions of words are a little bit off. Not off, they are accurate to the time when they were written. A great resource, just a quick guide for my students if you have no idea where to find them, if you're not taking advanced placement classes, maybe you're not dealing with the original texts, with the original sources in your history class. So this is a good one, ushistory.org/documents, and that just lists one of the main, a list of main documents. So I would start somewhere from 1700s and onward. If you click on Lincoln's House Divided Speech, 1858. And here we go. That would be the text. And it would either be inside of a paired passage, or just a portion of this text would be a like a passage on its own, would be defending a point or an argument. So that's a really good place for you to look for original sources. But don't forget that on top of American history original sources, you might be asked to also understand history sources from other countries as well. So we have one more category left, and that category is paired passages. And like I said at the beginning, I like to think of those paired passages as conflicting viewpoints. And there's a beautiful resource for that. That's in the New York Times. The resource is called Room for Debate. So you go to the New York Times and you just type in Room for Debate. And now it has gotten a a lot of it political, because when I first discovered this website, not the New York Times website, but when I first discovered a Room for Debate, kind of wing of the website, I was very excited. And it was right around 2016. And there weren't a lot of political debates going on at the time, not as many as there are now. And people were just debating about different things. And I just loved reading people's little essays and how they were exchanging opinions and how they were defending and then arguing against and trying to invalidate others' claims. It still is a lot of fun. So if you scroll down just a little bit, as you can see, there's a lot of political Trump-oriented topics. But here's November 14th, 2016. Should the government bring back trust busting? And you go in here, and here are the two debaters, Joshua Wright and Matt Stoller. It tells you a little bit about them. You can actually follow this dude on Twitter if you like. I do not know him. I don't know. Maybe you don't want to follow him. This is just a hypothetical example. And then Matt is making a case for something, and his sentence structure is amazing. You could notice that he offsets things by dashes, which SAT loves to do. It's very complex writing. And then Joshua is replying to him, usually completely disagreeing, completely different point of view. And now there are other New York Times readers that start to chime in and give their own perspective. It's just so much fun. And the way it's written is usually very well. And sometimes you will see the original writers go back in there and continue their debate. And sometimes those debate letters, those debate exchanges could be a lot lengthier. So let's just look for another one. Silicon Valley goes to Washington. That's again 2016. And these are all the debaters. As you can see, there's more than two. Now there's 6, and you can see this person's point of view, and then the other person's point of view. So that's a lot of fun. So if you're looking for a place where, and if you're finding, if you're taking the SAT practice test, and if you're assessing that, I have a really hard time with paired passages, maybe it's a good idea to read a couple of these. So before you actually start to seek particular strategies, you need to establish your ability of making meaning from text, first and foremost. I hope that's helping you guys. If I can be helpful in any other way, please leave me a comment below. Also, let me know how many errors are you making now on your SAT reading section. Which passage is the most challenging for you and why? And whether you have any ideas or resources how to enrich your reading diet and improve your reading score on your SAT. Bye.